I was 15 in 1980, and by then I was already completely drawn into what would soon be called the New Wave movement. Coming from a fairly conservative town just north of Copenhagen, it didn't exactly go unnoticed. Me and my friend Jesper stood out, and we were seen as a bit strange, even in Copenhagen at times. But that didn't matter. We had found something that felt completely new and right. By the time I was 16 or 17, we had started sneaking into the clubs in Copenhagen where this music really lived. The main place was a club called Daddy's Dance Hall, right underneath a large cinema complex in the centre of Copenhagen, a building that's still there today. It was one of those places where the sound, the fashion and the atmosphere all came together. There was also another club called Nice, named after the city in France. It was a bit more underground, less about being seen and more about the music, though it also had a slightly rougher edge with a motorcycle gang based nearby. We dressed the part. Pointed shoes in black and white, loose high-waisted trousers, often gathered at the ankle, usually in black, shirts with suspenders, eyeliner, rouge and hair styled upwards, spiked and sharply shaped in black, white or red. It was not always easy. Back home we were seen as outsiders, and even in the city people would sometimes stare or make assumptions, but on the dance floor none of that mattered. Those years also ignited something in me, a desire to make music myself, which I went on to pursue, eventually taking me around the world more than once as a performing and recording artist. Looking back, there are 15 songs that stand out from those years, songs that stayed with me and helped shape who I became. These are not in strict chronological order, but in the way I experienced them on the dance floor during those years. There were, of course, many more artists and songs being played at the time. Bands like Simple Minds, Duran Duran and others were very much part of those nights. But this selection focuses on what I would call pure synthpop, the tracks where the electronic sound really sits at the centre. I have also deliberately stayed away from some of the biggest and most obvious hits, not because they are not important, but because they are already so well known and still widely played. Instead, I wanted to highlight some of the tracks that meant just as much on those dance floors, even if they are talked about a little less today. I would like to dedicate this video to my 80s dance floor buddy and good friend Jesper, or as most knew him, Jeppe, who died from cancer far too early. Keep dancing in that grey-blue sky, my friend. The first song takes me straight back to those early nights. Packed dance floors, low light, and that feeling that something new was happening right in front of us. The Human League with Love Action. By 1981, they had reinvented themselves completely, moving away from their earlier experimental phase into something more direct, more emotional, and much more danceable. Love Action had that perfect balance, minimal, electronic, but still full of feeling. And when it came on, you could feel the shift instantly. People moved closer to the floor, the energy changed, and for a few minutes everything just clicked. It sounded modern, confident, and completely of its time. OMD's Enola Gay had already made its mark by then. Released in 1980, it was one of those tracks that seemed to exist everywhere, but it never lost its impact. There was something unique about it, a bright, almost uplifting melody, paired with a subject that gave it real weight. That contrast stayed with me. It showed that this new electronic music could carry emotion and meaning, not just rhythm. Even in a club, you could sense that people were connecting with it on a different level. Then the mood would shift again, but without losing the energy on the floor. Soft cell with frustration. It had a sharper edge to it, more direct, more driven. There was still that raw, slightly dark atmosphere that defined soft cell, but here it worked perfectly in a club setting. Mark Allman's vocal had attitude, and the track carried a sense of urgency that really connected with the crowd. It kept people moving, while still feeling a bit dangerous and different, and that combination made it stand out. By 1983, Depeche Mode were evolving fast. Everything Counts marked a real turning point. It still had that strong melodic core, but there was something sharper underneath it, a sense of awareness, even critique. It felt like the band was stepping into a new phase, both musically and lyrically. I remember hearing it and realizing that this music was no longer just about the dance floor. It was starting to say something more.
Grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves, after all. They're grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves, after all. It's a competitive world. Everything counts in large amounts.
Visage captured the essence of the new romantic scene better than almost anyone. The Damn Don't Cry had that elegant, slightly melancholic atmosphere that defined that whole movement. It was stylish, controlled, and very much about mood. On the dance floor, it created a different kind of energy, less about movement, more about presence, about being seen but also about belonging. Yazoo's situation brought everything back to pure energy. From the moment it started, it pulled people onto the floor. Alison Moyet's voice had a weight and power that stood out immediately, and combined with Vince Clarke's production, it created something that felt both raw and precise. It was direct, effective, and impossible to ignore. Heaven 17 took things in a slightly different direction. I'm Your Money had a groove that felt more sophisticated, more layered. There was a sense of funk in there, but shaped through electronics. It felt like the sound was expanding, becoming more refined. And that shift was exciting because it showed how far this music could go. Feel Me by Blancmange added another layer again. There was an Eastern influence running through it, something atmospheric and slightly mysterious. It stood apart from a lot of what else was being played, and that made it memorable. It was another reminder that this was not a fixed genre. It was constantly evolving.
Feel me now, feel the pain, take the blame, feel the strain, before a word was spoken, my heart was broken. Feel me now, feel the pain, take the blame, feel me now.
Thompson twins with Love on Your Side brought in a more accessible, almost pop-oriented feel, but still grounded in that electronic foundation. There was a warmth to it, something very human behind the machines, and that balance made it work so well, both on the radio and on the dance floor.
We spend the night in talking all the time. You send me home. I was so surprised to find that after all, it doesn't hurt to be alone. 'Cause you got love, love, love on your side. 'Cause you got love, love, love on your side. 'Cause you got love, love, love on your side. 'Cause you got love.
Thomas Dolby's She Blinded Me with Science introduced a completely different energy. Playful, clever, slightly eccentric. It did not take itself too seriously, but musically it was still sharp and inventive. It showed that electronic music could also have humour without losing its identity.
When I'm dancing close to her, science. I can smell the chemicals. Science.
We Are Glass by Gary Numan carried a colder, more detached atmosphere. Even by 1981, it still felt futuristic, slightly distant and very deliberate. That contrast with the more emotional tracks around it gave it a unique position. It felt like a different perspective on the same movement.
We are glass. We are glass. We are real. You can touch us for now. When they say, hey, you, which way is down? We are glass. We are glass.
B-Movie's Nowhere Girl is one of those tracks that did not dominate at the time, but for those who heard it, it left a lasting impression. There is a mood to it, slightly melancholic, slightly distant, that really captures that early 80s feeling. It is one of those songs that stays with you.
And I tried to get through, and I tried to talk to you, but there's something stopping me from getting through. Nowhere, girl, what you have you need. Nowhere, girl, all functional and neat. Nowhere, girl.
Eurythmics The Walk showed another side of what this music could be. Slightly quirky, a bit off-centre, but still rooted in that electronic sound. It felt creative and unpredictable, and that unpredictability was part of what made the whole scene so interesting.
Step away, walk away. All I want is the real thing. Step away, walk away. Ooh, step away, walk away. All I want is the real thing. Ooh, step away, walk away.
Ultravox brought things firmly back to the dance floor with We Came to Dance. It had that driving rhythm, that sense of forward movement, and it felt made for those late nights. There was a confidence in it, a clarity of purpose, and you could feel that when it played. And then there is Landscape with Einstein A Go-Go. Released in 1981, it had a very distinctive electronic feel, driven by sharp staccato synthesizers and a slightly restless rhythm. It stood out immediately. There was something almost mechanical about it, but at the same time it worked perfectly on the dance floor. It was different, a bit quirky, but still completely in tune with that early synthpop sound that was shaping the clubs at the time.
Einstein A Go-Go.
Looking back at these songs now, what stands out is just how much variety there was within those few years. From minimal electronic tracks to more layered productions, from pure dance floor energy to something far more introspective. It was a period of constant change, and that is what made it so exciting to be part of. For me, these were not just songs, they were moments. Nights on dance floors, friendships, experiences, and the beginning of a lifelong connection to music. They shaped not just what I listened to, but what I went on to create myself.